Hello, I'm speaking with Katherine, Dr. Katherine Horton and Ole Dammegård. We are going to talk about how we could regain the freedom, our freedom of speech, and also recapture the legal system. And Dr. Katherine Horton is particle physicist from Switzerland, and she has homepage stop007.org, but she can talk about uh, herself more and introduce herself more. And also Ole Dammegård from lightonconspiracies.com, who is well known. Ole has worked with false flags operation for more than 30 years and is quite well known. Also, when Ole can talk about, introduce himself also more. And Katherine, could you introduce yourself more? And
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me on, Alexandra. It's a great honor. And I have to say I'm a former particle physicist. So I used to work at CERN and at DAISY, which is an accelerator or was an accelerator in Hamburg. But now I'm working more as a freelance criminal investigator. So I'm investigating crimes committed with directed energy weapons, with military, neuro and biotechnology, and I'm also looking into systemic corruption. So I've been doing this for a year and a half, and now I'm working on preparing court cases to help the victims of all these crimes. And I was involved in 2 court cases here in Europe as an expert witness, and now I'm preparing my own because I'm affected by the very same types of crimes. I am being attacked nonstop with directed energy weapons since January 2016, so it's almost the 3rd anniversary of this. And I discovered in 2017 that I'm chipped. I didn't know this, but I have a lot of chips in my body, on my head, in all my limbs, and every single time I'm trying to do something to fight this criminality, I actually get tortured with these chips. So I'm trying to help other people who are in the same situation, and I'm trying to bring it finally into the courts, that the courts accept that this is going on. But for me, today's topic is very goes right to the core, because what victims of these type of attacks are suffering from is a complete media blackout. And it's getting better now, but for years and years, social media was being censored. So victims had essentially no right to free speech. They were silenced about the crimes being committed against them. So I'm very, very glad to be able to appear on the show. Thank you.
thank you. I have to mute my microphone because we have so much extra sound coming from somewhere. Uh, so now, Ole, please, could you also introduce yourself more?
Well, like you said, I've spent more than half my life looking into these things. To start with, just as a confused, normal person wandering around, trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and also finding out that no one else is doing it for us. They're not the police who are there to protect us are not doing it. The government that are there to support and help us become better and better, they're doing the exact opposite. The politician, you name it, it's like at this point in time it feels like everything is upside down, and we're on our own here. So we sort of have to somehow gather and get the power back to ourselves, take personal responsibility and get back in balance and power and harmony, because they're very strong forces that are trying to force us into a very dark and not very nice future. So I think it's super interesting that Dr. Katherine Horton is here with us, because I remember a few years ago, I mean, I've been all over the world speaking in different conferences, and I was invited to Berlin to a conference for targeted individuals. And I said, I don't know why you invited me, because I don't know about these things at all. But they said, well, we want you. So I was very pleased, and I went there. And for about the first day, I was sitting wondering, am I in some kind of lunacy asylum? Because there were all of these people that sounded very credible, talking about absolute weird stuff that, I mean, tortured souls that were in so much pain, physically and psychological pain and torture, and they were talking about things that, I mean, I had no idea. But after, it was a 3-day conference, after these 3 days, I just felt I need to learn about these things, because this is real. I mean, people are even committing suicide because they cannot take it anymore. And it was very strange for me as well, because one of the other speakers were Professor Ole Johansson from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, who is super knowledgeable about the dangers with cell phones and mobile phones and so on. And I asked him, what do you think about these people who are in the audience? Because they were like 200-300 saying the exact same things, but there was no common thread. There was not the same age or the same ethnic background or skin color or gender or you name it. It was just all over the place. And I said, I find this hard to believe. And he said, I don't believe it at all, because when you do scientific stuff, you do it like this, like this, like this, like this, and it doesn't match up at all. I have to totally disagree with him now, because the more I find out that there's this, it's almost like they're inflicting pain randomly, just like they also inflict terror attacks and violence randomly to affect as many people as possible. And these poor individuals, nobody is listening to them. Everybody's looking upon them as they're being absolutely mad and crazy and off their rockers. So I think it's super interesting and very valuable that somebody with an IQ like you, Katherine, I mean, you look like you can tell the difference between hot and cold water and a lot more. So when somebody like you are suddenly also stepping forward saying that this is real, and we got Cody Snodgrass, the CIA whistleblower, who also has been in the other end of this dark agenda, being part of using these weapons, and was killed twice. I mean, he flatlined twice after one of these attacks. So it's becoming very real. And so I think it's at this time also when everything is being pushed together. I mean, we're being attacked from all different directions: the air, the water, you name it, chemtrails, cell towers, 5G, smart meters, false flag attacks, vaccines, you name it. I mean, we are bombarded with it. So it's so important that we understand what the problem is, because you have to see what is the problem before you can try and find any kind of solution instead of just wandering around complaining. You have to see this is actually what's going on. And so I think it's super interesting to be part of this. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for inviting me also, because we need to join forces, and we come from so different angles and different backgrounds. So I think together, hopefully we can make a difference. And I think also what is super interesting with you, Katherine, is that you're taking it to court. I mean, you're not bullshitting. You are taking it to court. Not that I trust courts at all at this point. I mean, I'm so looking forward to the day when I meet a judge that I can shake his hand and say, listen, I trust you. I see you by your actions that you are an honorable person. I'm very much looking forward to that day. And I'm sure they're out there. So it's just me that haven't met so many of them. But it's like when you take it to that next level, that is where it starts making a difference. And I see in so many different areas, I'm getting approached now by militaries in top positions, black ops, police officers, militaries, politicians, you name it. They're starting to, I think when the ship is starting to sink, the rats are leaving. And then it becomes more and more, I'm not calling them rats, I'm just saying that many people who have dared for or feared for their lives and have been too fearful to step forward. Now the time has come where more and more, also inspired by people like Cody, who are putting himself totally on the line here, to step forward and start talking about these things so it comes out in the open so we can actually do something about it. So And I just want to say 2019 is going to be a party year. It's a year of celebration and major, major change. And my sweetheart keeps saying, you always say that. You've said that for the last, I don't know how many years. And yes, but I think it's getting better and better. More intense, more challenging, but better and better. So now I'm going to be quiet and listen and learn from you.
Of course, this year is 2018. 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6, 666. So this year, when we leave it, we have some good start. But I would like to say that on the highest level, legal level, we have a United Nations and Security Council, and there are three countries: United States, Great Britain, France, as some kind of security. What we know about United States, it's like DARPA and genocide. Now, in these days, like last month, there were fires in California that are obviously man-made. It's directed energy weapons. If you see the dead bodies, you see legs, like normal legs, and then you see like vaporized dust, black dust. You can see these pictures, and I don't know if smart meters were also somehow involved, but it's Rothschild's company there, and like we have United States, a nuclear superpower, attacking our own citizens, US population with weapons of mass destruction. Shall we go there and save them? Or shall they come and save us when military here are attacking us? Then we know then that the second nuclear power in Security Council is UK, and we know that it's quite well known that they were planning a nuclear attack on own citizens in July 2012 during the Olympics. Michael Shrimpton, barrister Michael Shrimpton, has witnessed about it, and also his name is Fellows, I don't remember now the first name, but Ben Fellows, a journalist who also learned that G4S, the company, that the employees knew that they would take 200,000, I believe, FEMA coffins, and one FEMA coffin you get like 4 or 5 dead bodies inside. I was there in London. I would be killed also. And France, haven't they attacked? They were certainly involved in Syria, Libya, 2 years before the problems in Syria has begun. So the former, I believe, Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, Roland Dumas, I believe, he said on television that he was contacted by the British, I believe also the French, that they were preparing something in Syria in case he would like to join. And then when it started 2 years later, it was obvious for him that the secret services of Great Britain and probably France also has been involved in preparation of this. So we have on the highest level, like some kind of Security Council for the whole planet, 3 countries that they are obviously attacking others and even own citizens. So,
well, I think, you know, this is something that's really hard for most people to understand, is why would a country attack its own citizens? And I'm trying to get across to them that it's actually not their country in the meaning that they would understand it. It's not their government. The governments haven't existed in a very long time in the way that, or maybe never existed in the way we imagine them. What we have is now a super architecture over the entire over all nation states, that is an organized crime syndicate, and that's going to asset strip wherever they can. So they have deep captured and infiltrated governments over centuries, and they rule. So it's not really the US government technically that is attacking them. It is an extraterritorial foreign syndicate that has roots in the US. And for example, if you look at where the inland revenue money is going in the US, it goes straight to the City of London. You know, the entire tax revenue of the United States goes to the City of London. And this is very well known in finance. And what the US government does to pay its employees is to take a new credit every year. So that's why the debt is rocketing up, because every year they're taking new credit to pay for government operations, whereby all the tax revenue goes to the City of London to pay off the interest on the previous debt. This is a total nonsense situation, and the same is happening everywhere. So, you know, what we have is these, I think by now it's known that Washington, D.C. is a private property, extraterritorial private property. So is the City of London, and Washington, D.C., City of London, and the Vatican form a three-city state. The Vatican have their own diplomats. So London, they don't really have diplomats, they have bankers, but they also have technically immunity. So who are these people? They are neither Britain, they are neither the US, nor are they Italy. They are a system unto themselves, you know, and this is what people need to understand, is that the people who make the decisions are not even the US government anymore. They are foreign agents, they are foreign operatives. And once you get your head around that, it's clear to understand why they would attack the US. I mean, in my view, what we saw in the world since the First and the Second World War is this organized crime syndicate is going around the world, and it's literally harvesting assets. And, you know, they first harvested Germany in the Second World War. They got a lot of gold and art and everything that they stole from the people they murdered. They shipped it off to Switzerland. But then after that, what happened is that they did the same asset stripping in Russia and then in China. And you have the same criminal syndicate. Wherever they go to asset strip, like locusts, they leave a genocide. So they kill off the people and they take the people's stuff. But if you look at the world map of where these genocides have been happening in the 20th century, they happened everywhere apart from the US and, you know, and Canada maybe. And, but they happened in Latin America, Africa, Asia, and they haven't happened in Britain, you know. Germany was asset stripped in the Second World War. So now I think it's the US and Britain and Europe again, because they are ripe for picking. You know, it's like a harvest again. You let wealth accumulate and then you take the wealth. And I think this is what we're seeing, and this is why it's now us. It's nothing new. It's just in our minds, we never understood that our own military are so psychopathic. They are killing and murdering around the world, and now they're coming home, but they are totally mental, so they don't care who they kill. They will kill us as well. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, you are right. You wanted to say something, Ule?
No, I just wanted to say it. What you're describing goes under the name of the New World Order and the New World Order agenda. It is just like you say, Katherine, it's beyond national borders. It has nothing, I mean, the way they see the countries are just like pieces on a chessboard, like franchises. So it's just a matter of playing them. So it's not like what is going on in France and what is going on in Germany or what is going on in the US. Has nothing, if you look at it at that level, you look at the local politicians and you totally miss the picture, because you had to raise way, way, way above the whole thing. So you look at this at a global point of view, and then you start seeing, identifying the different individuals and the different structures, the power structure in this whole thing. That is when you start seeing what's going on. And the agenda, the New World Order agenda, is like there are three power centers in the world, just like you said. We got the financial center in the old city of London. That's England, the UK, but it's actually not England as such. It's there right in the old city of London. Then you got the religious center in the Vatican, or religion, I mean, whatever that means in this case, We're talking super criminals. That is what it's all about. And then you got the war center in Washington. And it used to be very clearly marked. This, they do that, they do that, they do that. And then in between these three centers, everything has been transferred, in both directions, all different directions: weapons, drugs, pedophile trafficking, organ trafficking, gold, the rat lines, you name it. It's been going like this. So it's a total super criminal syndicate that is aiming at taking over the world. And they don't look at this as different countries. They don't care about normal individuals. Absolutely not. They're there to rule. That is it. The mentality, I don't get at all. But their agenda is to totally destroy everything and out of the ruins rebuild what they call the New World Order. And so the way they do it, one of the ways they do it is through what is called the strategy of tension, created by the CIA in the early 50s, was when, after the Second World War, when NATO was created, the whole world was divided after the war, where it ended up with this iron curtain going straight down through Europe. They divided Europe. Russia got some, the Allies got some. And this iron border that went straight down and cut the world in two almost, which became the front line of the so-called Cold War between the East and the West. And in these different countries, when NATO were created, the Allies, led by MI6 and CIA in the Allies, what they started doing was they created a very, very clever defense hidden organism called Gladio. Or Gladio, it went under many different names, but it was all the members of NATO. Anyone that wanted to enter into NATO to be protected by Big Brother had to create their own ghost army. And this ghost army consisted of hundreds and hundreds of small cells, from 6 to 8 to 10 people in each, military people, security people, from from the resistance movement, from you name it, people that could be trusted. No lefties, no communist thinking at all was allowed. And then all of these hundreds of cells were then equipped with weapons, fuel, radio equipment, ammo, bombs, landmines, you name it, that was then buried in the ground. And it was very important for them that these cells should not know about each other. They would just be in contact through the radio, but no one knew the whole scheme or what was going on. It's, as usual with these operations, totally compartmentalized. Each and every individual only know their little part. And then so the whole idea was, if any NATO nation would be invaded, the government and the royalties or whatever, creme de la creme, would just take the hell up and go to London, leave the rest to fight the enemy. But then they would go to London, pick up the phone, and in one phone call, more or less, activate a whole fully equipped army on location, spread out, strategically positioned in the country, that could then fight the enemy. If you ask me, I think it's a brilliant idea. And I also believe that my father was part of creating the Danish version. I'm finding out more and more on a daily basis almost about his hidden double life. And anyway, so that was super duper when NATO was still a defense organism, at least officially. But then the years went by, and suddenly it came to a point where, for one thing, the Cold War wasn't at all, as we were being told. The threat from the East wasn't there at all, the way we've been told. And this whole, the Russians, absolute bullshit. But otherwise than that, the Western forces, or what was more and more being infiltrated by the New World Order, had access to tens of thousands of the very disciplined, hard-core warriors, fully armed, equipped, that nobody knew about. So somebody came up and said, listen, isn't this a waste of good things? I mean, we can really use this for something valuable. And boom, in came the strategy of tension. How to destroy Western societies, how to inflict fear in the normal population so that we would bend over, pull down our pants and says, please protect me, protect me, protect me, and then accept more and more surveillance, military style, police control, you name it, and at the same time paying for it, also supporting totally unjust wars and attacks on innocent countries. So how to do that? Random violence is the key. It has to be random so that they could affect anyone, so that everyone would be kept fearful. And this is where so-called terrorism enters in on stage in Europe and in other countries, where Israel, Mossad, I mean, they are the ones that created this whole terrorism thing. They were the ones that set the whole thing up. So what they did was they started going around, like for instance in Holland, Belgium, they went into supermarkets and just started shooting people randomly with machine guns. They started blowing up train stations, like in Italy, in Bologna. There were all these, there's many, many airplane crashes. And this has just escalated over the years. And so now, I mean, I'm supposed to be some kind of expert on false flags. What I have found over these years that I devoted my life, and I've been on location on more or less every one that is said to have happened in Europe. Also, I've been able to predict and stop about 15 on international radio up to 2 months before they happen, and stop several of them. So how the hell have I been able to do that? Because I started to see actually who is doing it and how they're doing it, and the structure and the way they communicate and so on. So I should be a super expert on Muslim terrorists. I would say that. I mean, with such devotion, so many years input, I have not to this day found one real Islamic terrorist. As far as I know, I have not. But what I have found, what I bumped into, and I'm being threatened, and I mean, they try to do whatever kinds of things. This is also why I live now in Spain, because I had 2 friends murdered. What I have encountered repeatedly are state-sponsored terrorism aimed at strategic points to freak the hell out of normal population. So they target iconic locations for that country, buildings that have a national value, as Twin Towers, the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, these type of things, also touristic value, so that when they hit it, they will hit the nation's pride and the national feeling. And then they aim at women and children mainly to get the emotions going, so that we will go, oh my God, oh my God, we are back to the old Roman template, problem, reaction, solution. They secretly create a problem to get the reaction from us. And that the one they want is just like, oh my God, we need protection. And then we turn towards the ones that we think are there to protect us, not understanding that it's actually them who are creating this whole mayhem, saying, please, please. And then they say, well, the only way we can solve this very horrible problem is, and boom, in comes the solution. And the solution every single time is the same. More and more control, more and more militarized police, more and more surveillance, more and more cameras in the streets, more and more you give up your freedom, your civil rights, your human rights, all of this to get more and more into prison, a digital prison. So that's the whole idea. That is what they're trying to do. So it's very important, I think, to see who's actually carrying this whole thing out. I mean, let's get and cut through the fog and see, are we being attacked by Muslim extremists? That's possible. Or are these inside attacks on the population? And I've really put all my effort into finding the truth. I don't care. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just here to try and find out the truth. And what I found is state-sponsored terrorism. Over and over and over. The people that are threatening me, that are shutting everything down, that are censoring me, it's not Muslim terrorists, I tell you. It's not Muhammad. No, it's Mossad, CIA, MI6. You can go into the statistics on my website. They're there. I mean, you see, I've got like nowadays, WordPress has like small spy programs installed, so you can see, and you just check the IP address, and I've got like thousands of like 3-minute visits, so they've been there 3 times or 2 times, and then it's like 18,437 that's kind of interesting because it's like, whoop. And then I got another one. I got 3 that are there like skyrocketing. So you just check the IP address, and nowadays you can find it on Google Maps. So where does it lead you? Well, the 3 ones that I found, I haven't really looked so much, but there's 3 of them that just stood up, and I took screenshots of them. And one is on Kungsholmen in Stockholm. That is the place where the police headquarters are, and also the secret police. That's one. That's interesting. The second one is the MI6, the exact location by the Thames River in London, central London. Boom, MI6. Oh my God, surprising. And the other one, NSA. Well, guess what? That's very surprising. So I would also say, I'm ranting on here, but I would also say, so if I've been able to predict publicly on international radio 15 of these, that is quite something, I would say. It's not, I'm super intelligent, or I've got a crystal ball. There must be something that I'm onto. So I would say, if I were them, either this individual must be involved, or he's found some way to see what's going on, and he could possibly help to stop this thing. If what we're being told that they're actually trying to stop this so-called terrorism, why are they not contacting me? Why have they not said, hey, you there, you come here because we want to work with you. Please tell us, either we're going to find out how you're involved with these Muslim terrorists, or how the hell have you been able to do this? The reason for them not doing it, I say that smells a long way. And what does it smell of? Well, I can tell you, not very nice stuff. The reason why they don't want to speak to me, or they want to shut us down, is because it's them doing it to us. They are the ones doing it to us. That's the whole point.
You know, actually, when you were talking, I'll pass the microphone back to Alexandra literally in a moment. I just wanted to say 2 things. When you described the Gladio program, you know, one of the things that it makes me think of immediately is that it is a franchise. You know, when you set up a McDonald's, you know, you just want to open a McDonald's, you can run it as a franchise, and there are supermarkets that are franchises. And what it will do is that you take a loan, which you will repay from the profit you generate, but they supply, you know, the logo and many things and the shopping trolleys and so on. This is how a franchise works. You buy yourself in a franchise, and then you profit from it, and then part of the money goes back to HQ. This is a very well-known concept, and I'm not sure when the first franchises opened, but they are absolutely ancient. And I think what we forget is that this crime syndicate, it is in business. It's just in crime, which is also business. It has exactly the same structure and the same mechanisms, and it has the same sort of concept. So these Gladio armies, they are little franchises of the global organized crime syndicate. You know, somebody does a buy-in, which might be a control file or something, and then they have to work to kind of, you know, get back up on their feet from the control file. Maybe they have, you know, conscripted to the military or whatever. But then HQ will supply the weapons, the communication tech, will supply the communication channels and the covert signs and so on. And they're unified centrally. And then the HQ will control all these little, you know, individual franchises. That's absolutely, you know, it totally fits with everything else we know about this crime syndicate. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the viewers and maybe also the panel, to the fact that once you make the assumption that we're not dealing with governments anymore, but we're dealing with a superstructure that is highly criminal, so an organized crime syndicate, you can start thinking, okay, how does a mafia, not necessarily the Italian mafia, although they're involved, but any mafia in the world, how do they operate? Well, they run extortion, they run drugs, they run human trafficking, and so on, and they make a lot of money, but then they have to wash the money and make it look legitimate. So this huge criminal syndicate has to have a big machinery where they are washing money. And traditionally, the Italian mafia has been laundering illicit money from drugs through front organizations that were apparently normal businesses. For example, ice cream parlors. They are in Italy one of the top money laundering places because ice cream is like printing money in summer. especially in Italy. You know, it's like one cone of ice cream, which is water and cream, you pay, you know, €2 sometimes. So ice cream parlors make a stupid amount of money in a very short time period. So you can funnel in extra money and say, oh, this is from ice cream, but actually it's from selling drugs, you know, and stuff like that. So what has been set up is that all this asset stripping operation that has been done by this crime cartel around the world needed to invest into normal businesses to cover up the money flows internationally. You know, I mean, there's barely any financial regulation investigation anyway, but there's some. So they still have to hide this mega operation. And what has grown up out of this is a huge commercial cartel, where this global crime syndicate is investing in normal businesses and they're buying them up one after the other because they are making so much money. So at some point, a systems analysis team in Switzerland at ETH of Zurich went out and started looking for this cartel. I'm not sure if they had organized crime in mind, but they wanted to look for an economic superstructure that everybody said exists. And in 2011, they came up with this bombshell paper that pretty much shows who is involved. Now, I want to show you a plot because that identifies who the criminals are at a very, very high level. But I'm not sure if I can share my screen. I will just give it a random try. Let's see. I think it's this one. Okay, can you guys see this paper?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So it's not as boring as it looks at first, okay? So bear with me. This paper is called The Network of Global Corporate Control, and it was publicized by the former General Counsel, Karen Hudis, the General Counsel for the World Bank. So it is actually through her I heard about this, and then I read the paper, and I was just flabbergasted. This is absolutely amazing. So the researchers Vitali, Gladfeld, and Battiston went through, and they analyzed, it says somewhere here, I think 43,000 international global companies, and they mapped the flow of control. Okay, and now let me just cut to the chase here. This is the final conclusion pretty much. So when they mapped these 43,000 international corporations, they discovered that there was a supercluster, an absolute total cluster of control that controlled 40% of these global international companies, and I think 60% of the profits. And they also discovered that this cartel had gone under the radar of all the cartel legislation around the world by not having the majority in the shares, but instead controlling the boards of directors. I think this is how I understand it. Now, when they mapped out how the boards of directors hang together, they discovered the superstructure, and they discovered that at the very top, and nobody's going to be surprised by this now, at the very top are banks and insurance companies. So you have Commerzbank, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Barclays, UBS, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and here it is, Bank of America. Nobody is surprised by this. But what this actually proves, black and white, and this is why this paper is so very, very important.
Katherine, could we take part 2? Because I see that it's some problem with Zoom.
Oh, just in 1 minute.
Yeah.
So if you remember where you